On August 24th, 2025, a video was posted to YouTube titled Hulk vs. Godzilla. It was uploaded by a popular channel called Death Battle, and the general setup for that channel is that they pit two fictional characters from different franchises against each other in a fight to the death. Each episode features research into the characters' abilities, histories, and feats, followed by an animated battle that shows the outcome. In this specific instance, Hulk beat Godzilla in this hypothetical scenario. Now, that's all well and good if you're a normal person, but this was earth-shattering to the unemployed Godzilla Powerscalers out there. One of these people was King of the Monsters, or as he's frequently abbreviated, KOTM, a small channel with a little over 7,000 subscribers on YouTube. In a 22-minute long video that was posted on September 7th, 2025, KOTM argues that Death Battle deliberately lied about Godzilla's power level. His central claim is that Death Battle lowballed Godzilla and ignored feats that, in his view, prove Godzilla is far stronger than they present.
What I'm going to focus on primarily is obviously the horrific slander that they did towards Godzilla.
The video is not framed as a critique, but as an expose, with KOTM treating Death Battle's choices as being intentional deception rather than interpretation.
So when I said Godzilla was dealt an unfair hand out of either bias or stupidity, yeah, it's pretty clear that I was right.
Throughout, he accuses Death Battle of bias, cowardice, and dishonesty, claiming they disrespected Godzilla fans by refusing to acknowledge what he calls the truth. He dismisses official guides or statements as being invalid, while elevating his own speculative calculations. By the end, he calls for Death Battle to redo their episode with what he considers real math.
So, yeah, that was horrible. The animation was also not great, like it was very stiff compared to Devil Artemis's other work. Like compared to Kratos vs. Ashura or Megatron vs. Frieza, this was severely lackluster. They showed none of Godzilla's power-ups. They skipped basically straight to Ultima. Minus model and Rivals model look awful. And honestly, like they should have used the PS4 Heisei Godzilla model. It's publicly available and much higher quality. So I honestly don't know what the hell they were doing.
Regardless, the core of his argument revolved around nuclear power. He repeatedly insists that because Godzilla is a creature born from nuclear energy, and according to KOTM, his durability and destructive capability should be measured against the real atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He argues that Godzilla surviving military attacks, kaiju beam fights, and regenerating from damage all prove he is stronger than nuclear weapons and should be scaled accordingly.
First, let's talk about the difference in treatment. It's pretty obvious from the start that these two were not treated equally. The Hulk was treated with reverence. They gave him powerful feats right from the start. The editing in that part of the video is significantly better. There's no more Hulk sex multipliers. Oh god, how could they show a father hit his son? Which is really bad, but you know what else is really bad? Godzilla vaporizing people on screen? Like, you want to say a parent beating their child is awful, but not, you know, thousands of people being incinerated by the atomic bombs?
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Now, the fact I even need to say this is insane, but invoking Hiroshima and Nagasaki in a power-scaling debate is flat out indefensible. Godzilla was conceived as a symbol of nuclear destruction, a cinematic reflection of Japan's trauma in the aftermath of World War II. To take those bombings and turn them into numbers on a fictional stat sheet ignores the history completely. Men, women, and children were killed in those two bombings. This is an outright exploitation of tragedy for the sake of inflating fictional power levels. In my opinion, this is the endpoint of what I call power scaling brain rot, an inability to distinguish between symbolic storytelling and real-world atrocity. When KOTM was rightfully criticized, he didn't admit fault but instead chose to crash out in the replies. Here's a comment under this video by a user named Nigel Nutmeg who said, quote, "Using Hiroshima victims as a shield to defend a film character you like in a pointless internet power scaling debate is genuinely evil. People like you are the reason nobody takes Godzilla or his fan base seriously anymore. Get help." KOTM responded to this comment by saying,
"Oh, you pitiful, sad little worm. I'm not the evil one here. They are. Because they went out of their way to suggest child abuse is more scary and awful than anything with the big lizard. Nice grifting, stupid."
While the backlash was intensifying, KOTM released a rather unhinged community post claiming that he never used the bombings as a pity shield and that people pointing it out were stupid and pieces of shit. He argued that his reference to the bombing was about tone, saying Hulk's backstory is treated with gravity while Godzilla's nuclear origin is treated like a joke. He framed his use of Hiroshima and Nagasaki as a call for consistency in how tragedy is handled across characters. The problem here, though, is simple. His video used real-world mass casualty events as a yardstick for Godzilla's power in a fight against the Hulk. The backpedal tries to reframe this as commentary on tone, but the footage just doesn't match that claim. Equating Hiroshima and Nagasaki to Bruce Banner's childhood abuse collapses two completely different realities into a single talking point, which is flat out absurd. When criticized, he didn't take accountability but lashed out with insults and doubled down. That is the cycle with this person. Hostility instead of responsibility. As you'll see, whether it's racism or false pedophilia accusations, this pattern defines him. So, who the hell even is this guy, and why am I singling out such a small and largely insignificant channel? Sure, he may have had a bad take here, and his videos are your standard cookie-cutter power scaling content that can be found all over YouTube. But the reason I'm making this video is because it's important to call out bad actors who give the Godzilla fandom a bad name, regardless of their subscriber count. This is allegedly not some kid, or even an edgy teenager trying to be shocking online. KOTM is an actual college graduate who surrounds himself with a following that's overwhelmingly made up of children. He can be found in Discord servers throwing around racial and homophobic slurs, degrading people with sexual insults, and saying some pretty disturbing things directly to minors. That alone should raise alarm bells, and what makes it worse is that he carries himself like a textbook narcissist. The unfounded accusations that he throws at his critics, calling them hypocrites, liars, manipulators, predators, are usually projections of his own behavior. When you step back, the pattern is quite obvious. The community posts, the Discord chats, the YouTube videos, all reveal someone who thrives on conflict, lashes out when criticized, and refuses to accept responsibility for the things he says. And while it might be tempting to dismiss him as a fringe voice, this kind of behavior damages the reputation of the fandom as a whole. It paints all Godzilla fans as being toxic and unhinged, when in reality, the vast majority of us love these films for their artistry, their history, and their meaning. That's why videos like this matter. If you want to understand why KOTM's reputation has taken such a hit, you don't need to look at his videos. All you need to do is open his community tab. What you find there is less of a place to share updates and more of a running diary of his frustrations, written with the urgency of someone who just can't log off. The posts swing from obsessive dissections of the death battle Hulk vs. Godzilla video to angry insults aimed at critics, Redditors, or even entire fan bases. It paints a very bleak picture of someone who isn't really having fun with their hobby, but just spiraling out in public.
Since Reddit is crying so bad, they're comparing me to the people who told unknowingly to kill himself. Safe to say, I won. So there will be a lot less posting about them with how pathetic that is. So, since I can't animate myself, I was going to make a compilation for Godzilla vs. Hulk from different animations across YouTube. But I'm not sure if I should still do that. It feels like stealing. I'm thinking it over. Follow-up content involving Ultima and other high-level Godzillas is still guaranteed, though.
He says, safe to say I won, but the victory is hollow. If he really won, he wouldn't need to keep posting about Reddit users at all. Then he immediately pivots into rationalizing why he might just steal other people's work and then turn it into his own video. The whiplash is clear because he wants vindication and content at the exact same time. And for someone who hates Reddit, he seems to spend a lot of time on there, often posting links to the Godzilla subreddit with this caption.
What a pathetic child to hide on Reddit. I will insult hypocritical scum however I wish. Anyone who proudly proclaims supporting double standards deserves it. I don't care what anyone else likes. When I post reasons about why films are of quality or of not, just saying herder I like is gross. I don't care if your feelings are hurt by that, but you could have said something actually worthwhile for a conversation. or stayed quiet.
You also get some bizarre ramblings where KOTM goes after gay people, or decides to just throw out random slurs or just be outright racist towards black people, like in this case, where he says that black people steal videos by reacting to them. When getting called out for this, he calls the guy an inbred, and has a complete and total meltdown. Don't worry, we'll talk more about the racist stuff later in the video. At the end of the day, KOTM doesn't seem to understand what a community tab is meant for. The tool exists so creators can update their audience on what they're doing, what they're working on, or just show personality in a way that builds trust. His use of it looks more like a personal diary of grudges. The posts are long, angry, and often directed at whatever person or group upset him that day. It honestly just reads like someone who's venting in real time with no filter, and it's sad. It makes me wonder if he has anyone in his life to process this negativity with outside of the internet. The tone is just unhinged. He'll claim that he has finished addressing critics and then immediately return with another wall of text almost an hour later. And if I'm being honest, this pattern raises real concerns about this guy's mental health. It's not normal or sustainable to treat a YouTube community tab like a battlefield where every slight has to be answered. Reading through it more than 5 seconds, and it becomes clear that this person is unraveling in public before our very eyes. Alright, so really quick, this section of the video is going to show KOTM being outright racist and sexually and verbally harassing people, some of which are minors. There are slurs aplenty here, so go to the description and skip this section if you are not comfortable with the material that I'm about to show. I'll give you some time to do that. Feel free to skip to that part right now. These are some Discord conversations where KOTM uses the N-word while also confirming that he is not black. He also writes, "You're my slave," which invokes slavery as being a racist dominance taunt. There are also multiple uses of the F slur as an insult. Most of this is just a way to degrade people, and it's textbook homophobic harassment. He throws the R word around like crazy, and several lines reference minors being in the chat. He replies with belittling language towards these minors by saying stuff like little girl, or saying that he's correcting minors so that they will improve, and keeps insulting in a space that includes them. I think any well-adjusted person can come to the conclusion that mixing slurs and power talk around minors is predatory conduct, even if no outright sexual content is present. This guy is allegedly almost 30 years old. When you step back, what stands out isn't only the language itself, but the consistency of it. These screenshots span different days and different conversations, and the tone is the same, with rage, slurs, and attempts to dominate whoever he's talking to. That consistency reveals character more than any video essay ever could. And not that I'm excusing racism or anything, but it's clear that it's not just someone slipping up and accidentally dropping a slur. He's very comfortable performing this cruelty in public in a consistent manner that is pretty constant. The fact that minors are present in these chats makes it even worse, because it shows no awareness of boundaries and no sense of responsibility. At that point, the issue goes beyond bad optics or internet drama. It raises real concerns about judgment, self-control, and mental health. This is a person who should not be in charge of a community space. As a content creator, there is an inherent responsibility when you have a younger audience to treat them with respect and to not say things like this. This is disgusting behavior. The following is a Reddit post from someone who claims to have known KOTM, and he gives some insight as to who this person is and how they were affected by their actions directly, saying, quote, KOTM, who is a college grad, by the way, is an ableist, which means that he makes fun of multiple disabled people. He, from one of my friends on Discord, was affected by KOTM. He kind of tricked me into trusting him at the start of the year when people were suicide baiting me and such. And because I was so fucked up mentally at the time, I went hook, line, and sinker. Second, he had what he wanted. Just full on becoming one of those people, and it almost pushed me over the edge. Guy told multiple people I know to commit suicide. There's no justification in that. He told me to justify it. Also, defending him just because he has autism doesn't justify KOTM saying to other people to kill themselves, just because they disagree with him and his videos. Plenty of people I know are neurodiverse, but they have this sense of being respectful and actually think before saying something that might upset other people. Unlike KOTM, who has a god complex and cannot bear the idea of others having different perspectives. There is zero sympathy or excuse to be given here, and anyone who supports KOTM only means that you support what he does, including hurting and bullying others. KOTM needs to be held accountable for what he said to people who were abused verbally and mentally. Reporting what KOTM has done by gathering all of what he said to other people on Discord and YouTube are great ways to make sure KOTM gets what he deserves." End quote. Something I do want to clarify here is that I am not saying that KOTM is a predator. I'm not saying that he is a pedophile at all. That would be incredibly reckless. There is very little evidence proving that. The only evidence that I do have is him sexually harassing a minor. Again, I am not downplaying that. That is horrific behavior and should totally be called out. Recently, a bigger channel called The Birdman, who makes these critiques against CinemaSins, made a video saying that the critical drinker is a grifter, which is a statement that I agree with. And this very much upset KOTM, who called out the Birdman, and the Birdman responded, "Sorry, didn't read and am not going to. I have come to find out that you are a flaming racist, using the hard ER N-word multiple times and disparaging Indian people. I would say I should expose you for being a hateful bigot, which is why you're mad I criticize other bigots, which is why you're mad I criticize other hateful bigots. Hit a little too close to home, eh? But that would bring more eyes to your channel than you've ever been able to bring in yourself, and I would only be doing you a favor. So stay mad, fruitcake, LOL." In his response, KOTM outright says that he will never apologize for saying slurs, and falsely throws around that it was pedophiles that he was saying these slurs to, so that makes it okay. And when presented with some really bad screenshots, I'm going to blur what I can here. If I showed it uncensored, it would probably get my channel banned. But he's saying, you know, KYS and your bloodline, hard R N-word. You are a goat fucker, unclean swine, incest N-word, full, hard R, talking like he doesn't see his brother and start drooling. Yeah, this is why you're Indian dirty. These are real screenshots. And KOTM likes to say that they are fake images. They're not. The people that are involved have reached out to me privately via email. They have confirmed everything. I have the full screenshots. It's real. I don't know what else to say. And unless KOTM can prove otherwise, I do believe this guy is a complete and total racist bigot. It's funny, too, that he thinks people would fake screenshots like this, because he's not that big of a deal, and his behavior is very evident that it makes total sense he would act like this behind closed doors in a Discord server. This has been a very one-sided drama with KOTM sort of screaming into the void, and his audience is very much turning on him. You look at this community post here where he, again, goes after Birdman, and the comments are all negative. This person says, "Your vids are nice. Can you just slightly calm down?" And people in the comments replying to that are saying, "I think he has anger issues," or "He never will. Don't bother, there's no turning back now." Pretty sure he's like 80% anger and 20% power scaling. Another person said, "Hey, Guinness Book of World Records. Yeah, I'd like to submit a record for biggest hole one person has dug. It's sad, because I liked your composite Godzilla video, but now, man, it's just sad." Another person said, "Why are you so hostile? Who's getting on your nerves? Is because of Birdman? You need to calm down, man." And then someone replied saying, "He is incapable of letting go. Just let the man rage and watch." KOTM responds by saying,
"Why am I being hostile to a man who falsely accused me of being a racist after I criticized his channel content?"
To which someone responds to KOTM saying, "He did not falsely accuse you of being racist. He truthfully accused you of being racist." Here's another one where someone said, "Doubling down and trying to defend your behavior is just going to get you in more hot water, dude. I would suggest trying to calm down, reflecting on the situation, and apologizing." To which KOTM responds,
"Apologize for what? Calling out a pathetic piece of garbage for his hypocrisy?"
The original commenter then says, "The very fact that you think you haven't done anything wrong leads me to believe that you may be hopeless. I hate having to diagnose someone as such, but your atrocious behavior and refusal to change is pretty clear evidence." The thread kind of goes on for a bit, and eventually KOTM says,
"I think what's more than apparent are reactionary idiots like you trying to defend this piece of filth are what's actually hopeless."
To which the original commenter said, "Firstly, you should not be throwing stones in your glass house. Secondly, as I have told you before, calling me names does nothing to me. Thirdly, at this point, you just need to leave YouTube as a whole, stay in your Discord circle, and leave everyone else alone." And as you can see, KOTM is just getting completely ratioed in his own comment section. It's really sad to see, but totally justified. I'm not going to go through every single comment, but you have comments like, yeah, this is the death of your channel, angry racist, mad he got caught being racist, can't make it up. You also have KOTM deleting comments like crazy, where this person says, Lamau, deleting my comments is so wacky. My guy, what makes you think nobody notices when their comment has been erased? RickDaSquirrel is a content creator who posts Godzilla-related memes and movie clips. He is someone who has a history with KOTM, and I'm going to present his testimonial that he sent to me personally in order to feature in this video. The following are his words exactly. Quote, "It happened in March of last year. I had made a video in response to a bad faith and terrible viewpoint on the whole -1 versus every other Godzilla movie debacle that YouTubers were trying to make to help their own ideology and culture war. He saw the video and told me how dumb it was and how Godzilla x Kong, which hadn't even come out yet, was objectively bad, and anyone who did think it was good was then treated as inferior to him. I called out his response to my video in my community tab, like he always does in his YouTube tab. I went to search his name up to see if anyone else had had a run-in with this guy less than an hour after posting my response to him, and found a video of him being racist, homophobic, and ableist to some people in a Discord chat, even telling them to kill themselves. I posted this to my community tab as an update to show how bad this guy was when it came to interacting with anyone, and he went on to try and make it a moral high ground by saying the people in that Discord server were all pedophiles. Then when I said that just because they are doesn't give you the right to use such despicable behavior as an excuse, what he did next was claim to his fans in his community tab on YouTube that I was defending pedophiles by taking my reasonable response to him, believing that they were, and then twisting my words so he could look better than me. This went on for the whole day until the people who posted the video that were in the Discord chat found out and messaged me in my community tab. It turns out that most, if not all, weren't actually adults. They showed me the entire Discord chat and I recorded the entire conversation. At one point, one of them said to him that they were a minor, but he brushed it off. A lot of things he said to them were, "You are my slaves," and "I taught you better, little girl." He would then try to say that I was somehow friends with them, therefore trying to slander me by calling me the same thing, along with my online friend who responded to them by being blatantly racist. But he also twisted his words as well. He would also continue to call them a monkey, even after them telling him they were black. He then said that being called a monkey isn't a racial slur somehow. His excuse to say all of these things to terrible people is also a lie, as he does this with anyone that doesn't agree with him. I've seen it firsthand. He cannot take any criticism whatsoever and will call you a worm or even more degrading words. We tried to solve this a couple of days later in a Discord chat, and he would not apologize for anything, despite proving to him that I didn't know the people, nor were they even adults like he said. Even though he said he was wrong about them being adults, he still claimed they were pedos, which, to anyone with any common sense, doesn't work. Therefore, he was basically saying he lied and was wrong about me being friends with them beforehand, and that I was defending them. He would still play stupid like he did with calling people monkeys by saying the same thing, as it's not related to anything bad. After many days of stress and him continuing to not budge, somehow, by some miracle, we were able to get through to him, and the last few exchanges were on neutral terms, and I wished him the best of luck. We deleted both our posts about each other, and he said that the beef was squashed. It turns out recently, though, that he didn't actually believe that, because when people brought up his bad behavior and mentioned me, he went and said that I was attacking him through the mud, so I deserved it. So after everything, he still thinks he's in the right, despite his own ludicrous claims, by grasping for a straw to pull. The guy knows what he's doing. Any socials he does have aren't listed on his channel, and he does all this horrible behavior through his community tab because he knows he can get away with it. If this stuff was in his videos, they would have been flagged and taken down years ago. I know people in the community who have gone through the same thing I've had. Some you may even know, where he did the same insane accusations based on nothing. The guy is unhinged and will try any way to gaslight his audience by manipulating your words into something they're not to make him justified in his actions and appeal to them like he's the good guy here. He's a narcissistic lolcow who will scream and claw at anyone who dares say anything the least bit negative about him. I genuinely had hoped he would tone his behavior down, and hoped to even comment on one of his videos saying that it's good. He's being better, and his videos were of better quality, but I knew there was a good reason to keep all the receipts after everything. The guy psychologically and mentally tortured me and made my life a living hell with slanderous lies he made up to make his horrible behavior I called him out on seem worth it because the people I attack deserve it. But he does this to anyone. This isn't the first time I've been through something like this, where my life and my mental health went downhill for me. The whole spring of 2024 was terrible for me. The Godzilla fanbase really showed its bad apples of two-faced, hypocritical, narcissistic edgelords that want to be seen as superior. I never looked that much or made mention of this incident again because I didn't want to go through this hell again. But after all this time, it seems like even if no one in the popular Godzilla YouTube space or any fan anywhere is going to actually take a stand, I might as well share the truth now since it's clear he's never going to learn or get better. I wouldn't doubt he will try to once again spread any lie, slanderous accusation, or threaten my and my family's safety and privacy, or even physically confront me at a con if he could. The guy has that type of energy Reverse Flash has, where he would lie about anything to save face. And the thing is, some people did believe his lies, and a few people went and attacked me with it. All I can say is that I hope the community can finally see and disavow this type of behavior, and I genuinely hope the guy can stop and try to improve himself. They're in their own little corner, screaming into the void and taking anyone with them into that fantasy that he's somehow right to be an evil manipulator who can't take an ounce of criticism or responsibility. His slanderous actions toward me hurt me deeply as someone who only wants to make the franchise and fandom better, and to bring the type of righteous virtues I believe in my religion. This is not the person you want to be, and I hope this video, even if just one person, sees that this man can't be who you become." End quote. Hearing Rick's story laid out like that hit me harder than I expected. I mean, this guy falsely accused Rick of being a pedophile. Who does something like that? The thing that stands out most to me, though, is how familiar this all is. I've seen this pattern again and again with KOTM. The same cycle of insults, gaslighting, and empty apologies, followed by more excuses when the behavior inevitably continues. Rick tried to de-escalate. He even gave the guy the benefit of the doubt and wished him luck, and in return, he was repaid with the same cruelty that started everything. I want to thank Rick for being willing to share this with me and for letting me include it here. It takes a lot to reopen old wounds and speak on something that's that personal. His words remind me why it's important to document these situations instead of just sweeping them under the rug. Even if you don't know Rick personally, or if you've never even seen his channel, I hope his story makes clear how destructive this kind of behavior can be and why we can't let it slide. A few months ago, I made a video talking about my problems with power scaling and how it can ultimately lead to what I called power scaling brain rot, where constant exposure to it ultimately harms the way that you consume media. You start to care less about things like storytelling and more about meaningless statistics and how many gigashits per megafart of damage an attack can generate. To be honest with you, it's a rather milquetoast video that I really only made for my core audience to explain why I tend to stick to critiquing movies as movies and avoiding power scaling discussions altogether. But if you're into power scaling, that's fine. I just wasn't going to cover it on my channel. Despite that, the video was lambasted by a lot of content creators here on YouTube in the power scaling sphere, which is fine. The point of making videos on YouTube is to get a response and to create debate. So for the most part, I don't really care when people respond to my videos. But one of these critics was KOTM, and this was my introduction to him. He had one of the most abrasive responses that I've ever gotten from a video of mine. This is what he said.
Yes, I saw that loser Firewood made a 20-minute tantrum on power scaling bad. Stop bringing it up. I don't care about the incoherence of someone only popular for talking about toys. Just don't watch trash like that. Starve attention-seeking morons.
Upon having this message forwarded to me by some of my subscribers, I immediately clocked it as, oh, this is some 12-year-old who's craving attention. But I stupidly felt it was best to at least make a statement, since this guy somehow had an audience and had a legitimate platform on YouTube, at least in this niche. So I said the following. I'm not here to trade insults or start drama, but I do want to point out how telling this kind of reaction is. Someone didn't like my video on Powerscaling, so instead of engaging with the actual argument, they decided to call me a loser and a moron while bizarrely claiming that I'm just some toy reviewer, which is news to me considering I really don't make videos about toys. This is the exact kind of hostility that gives the Powerscaling community a bad name. If the response to someone questioning that mindset is immediate mockery and incoherence, it kind of proves the point, doesn't it? The video wasn't made to pick a fight. It was about how fan discourse becomes hollow when it stops being about the art and turns into stat math and ego. If that felt threatening, maybe take a big step back and ask yourself, why? That being said, people like this are a vocal minority. The reception to my video has been largely positive, and I want to give a big thanks to everyone who engaged with the video in good faith. That's the kind of conversation I care about having. KOTM responded to my post by saying,
So the hypocrite bites back. Listen, sweetheart, it's your own fault that you had an entire series titled, and I quote, "Let's argue." You provoked debate, and then threw a tantrum when it didn't go your way. That is entirely loser behavior. You poked the hornet's nest, and then got upset when you got stung.
As a side note, I used to have a series called Let's Argue, where people would give me their hot takes, and then I would respond to them. If you actually watch these videos, they are super laid back and chill, and for the most part, it's me and my subscribers just having a laugh with each other. But this guy seems to insist that that's not what it was. Hot take, Godzilla is a woman, end of discussion. What?
The points made in that embarrassing clickbaity video have been said 1,000 times before and still mean nothing. It's toxic. Every fandom is toxic. And since you talk about crap like movie takes and toys, that's a larger part of the toxicity, if anything. It ruins art? No, it doesn't. Nothing can ruin art. And if monster fighting discussions can ruin the art of Godzilla films, isn't whining about toys and having provocative movie takes far more devastating to the ruin of art? Just a thought. This is why I called you an attention-seeking moron. You caused your own problems and then cried wolf when it got too much for you. Mocking you is the only appropriate course of action.
With that response, KOTM managed to literally validate everything I said in my original video. One of my arguments was that power-scaling culture encourages hostility and empty insults over actual conversation. His entire reply was nothing but name-calling. At no point did he address what I said. He never explained why power-scaling supposedly adds anything meaningful to discussions about Godzilla. He never challenged my point about it eroding how people engage with art. He just lashed out and called me a loser. That's the level he operates on. His defense was, every fandom is toxic, so it doesn't matter if this one is. Honestly, I think when the best you have to offer is everything sucks anyway, you're admitting that you don't have a case. It shows that he wasn't interested in a conversation, just wanted to be an angry defender of power scaling because that performance is what gives him attention. Remember what I said about how every accusation this guy levies is just a reflection of himself. Scrolling through his posts and videos, you see the exact same behavior. People who disagree with him aren't just wrong, but actual clowns, losers, attention seekers. He even said that mocking me was the only appropriate course of action. Think about that. His entire philosophy of debate is reduced to sneering at people, like an anime villain. What makes it worse is how detached his reasoning was. He actually claimed that people talking about movies or toys does more damage to art than reducing films to raw numbers and hypothetical stat sheets. It shows how backwards his priorities are. It's a worldview where the art itself is secondary to his ability to measure how hard one monster can punch another. And ultimately, he confirmed my point better than I ever could have. Sometime later, I made a vague post on Twitter about a channel called Godzilla Reacts, who was freebooting some of my content. In retrospect, I definitely should have made it clearer who the tweet was about, because KOTM came up with an insane conspiracy theory that this tweet was about a content creator named Zimzilla, who made a live stream reacting to my power scaling video. This is the community post that KOTM made, saying, quote,
Zimzilla99 made a response video to Firewood's garbage video that is 2 hours long, compared to the 20-minute-ish original literally crediting him in the title and linking the video in the description. Funny how that works. Why does he think this can't be checked? Did he think he could just bully a smaller channel? Or did he have no response to the points, so needed to duck the actual discussion?
A few hours later, someone replied to my tweet asking who this was about, but I wanted to wait until I had my call-out video on Godzilla Reacts out first. A few days later, the video dropped, and I clarified it was about Godzilla Reacts. Having seen this, KOTM posted,
Update on this. Firewood added like 18 hours after my post that it was that bozo Godzilla Reacts. Little weird that he did that nearly an entire day after his first one though. could be a red herring, but the alleged reaction doesn't exist on that idiot's channel. So, no longer about Zim, even though that's a pretty convenient thing to add a day later. The glue eaters can unclench. For now.
It's really funny how rent-free I was in this dude's head, because I genuinely forgot that he existed and was totally unaware he was even posting about me at this point in time. The funniest part is how much this revealed about his mindset. He desperately wanted to believe that I was targeting someone unfairly because that fits this supervillain version of me that he's built up in his head. It wasn't enough for him to say, I disagree with Firewood Media, which a lot of people say that's fine. But he needed to imagine that I was pulling strings in some grand conspiracy. Like, bro literally made up some fan fiction about me and then posted it as if it was a fact. So that is the story of KOTM, a guy who turned Godzilla Powerscaling into a platform for racism, harassment, and flat-out delusion. At the end of the day, I don't care if a channel has 7,000 subscribers or 7 million. If someone is openly bigoted, manipulative, or targeting kids, it's worth documenting, especially if it's all three. Because if nobody ever says anything, this kind of behavior can fester. If you ever come across a creator like this, don't give them any tiny inkling of attention that they are so desperate for. Don't reply to their comments, don't argue with them in their community tab like I did, don't post their videos by quote tweeting them, just hit report and move on. Engaging only feeds them. Starving them of attention and flagging their behavior is what actually makes a difference. I want the Godzilla community, and really any fandom, to be a place where people talk about movies, art, and stories because they love them, not because they're trying to win internet battles with ad hominem attacks and toxicity. And we can only get to that point if we hold bad actors accountable and refuse to let them define what this space looks like.